Hello everyone, Nick here, and welcome to the creation of Seka. This is the whole 6-hour creation process in about 30 minutes, so it will be quite fast, but I will try to explain as much as I can. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So I started this sculpt from a sphere. There was no idea or direction. I did not look at any reference or gathered moods or something. It was just me getting started. And I decided to get comfortable with like the most basic brushes and ZBrush again. It's not meant as an excuse, but I haven't sculpted for quite some time. So that was my main goal. I wanted to get comfortable with the tools again. And this is why I do like most of the stuff you see here with a basic set of brushes. And I talk about that more in detail in part 1 of like the whole creation process. But this was like the reason behind this. And what I like about ZBrush, and you see it here, you can try stuff over and over again. So I've redrawn the eyes over and over, and it all feels so fluent because you don't have to commit to anything. And this is like a nice sense of freedom you get inside of a program, because you won't see me like spending much time in menus or like tweaking some values here and there. You see, like most of the time I'm actually like sculpting, I'm actually tweaking stuff and changing stuff on the object. And this is what I like about ZBrush so much, because this is a sense of freedom you rarely get in any other program. So I really like how fluent this feels. So at this initial stage, I changed all the stuff a lot. I think the only thing I really kept is the idea that he will have a beard and a pretty huge head. So I wanted his face to be like a mask. I figured that out at that point, so it doesn't have like any realistic proportions or anything. I wanted to play with that feeling of that you don't know if there's like someone behind it, if it's a robot, if it's just a mask, or I wanted to play with that uncertainty. And at this point, I also gave him some kind of armor, because I know that I would render like just a basic, maybe 3/4 view or something of him from the front. So I won't spend like much time on the back at all, because I know the rendering will be just from the front. Same for the side of his head. It's just meant to be like some kind of visual noise, because you won't see it later at all, or not much. So I won't spend that much time tweaking it. So now actually to get rid of like a big part of his head, and you see that it was like so easy to replace or even to get rid of a very huge part, even though I've probably spent like over half an hour sculpting at this point. So the whole process is about like 6 hours. I sped it up quite a lot. But I think it's still very interesting to see like all the different steps I go through. So the first step was just to get an overall idea of what I want to do here. And now that I know what kind of parts I will have, I will split them all up, because it's easier to sculpt them individually and make them appear as if they work together. And it's just much easier if you have like separate objects for that. So this is what I'm doing here. I'm just splitting up all the objects so they can tweak them individually. A little mistake I did was that the objects I created are like a little bit too thin, and I will get problems with that here and there, and I have to use the inflate a lot and backface masking, so they just sculpt on the front. So this is something I've learned already, and I think I knew that, but it was just due to the fact that I haven't sculpted for such a long time that stuff like that like got lost. I just don't have the workflow for that anymore. But I intend to sculpt more regularly again, so this whole creation process will become more fluent for sure. And now that I have all these parts separated, I clean them up. So this is what I'm doing. I jump from subtool to subtool. It's not a lot of sculpting. It's more like making sure that they work together again. And actually ended up like changing this chin quite a lot. But it's okay, because at this point it was not the primary more like a mixture of primary and secondary shapes that has kind of worked together. And that's why I tried to make it work so that they fit to the cheeks. But like I said, I tweaked the cheeks a lot and I wasn't happy with them. So here I got like the Cinema 4D to try out an idea I had in my head. And for me, it was faster to do it in Cinema 4D. I really like that you can jump back and forth with the ZBrush bridge. So I can always choose what kind of tool I want to use to get my result that I want. And I even ended up changing it again. But maybe this led me like to this kind of shape I have now. And this is quite closer to what I have in the end. So I'm having quite a lot of issues here because my object is like too thin. But I think it's good that you also see the struggles I had. So mostly you just see the polished artwork and you never see what it took to get there. And it's all a learning process. So I think it's pretty cool that you also see where I struggle or what kind of solutions I come up with after I like struggled for quite a bit. But that's also what I like. It's all like problem solving the whole time. And here I sculpted the corner of the mouth quite high, and I wanted to have it follow like the line of the eyes. But he looked like he had like this grin now, and I kind of liked it for some time, but it wasn't what I was going after. I mean, I started the sculpt without any idea or concept in mind. But I think at some stage you should have an idea of what you're going after. And so for me, I'm telling myself like little stories, and I try to find adjectives that really help me to get an idea of my character. So for him, I imagined him to be like some kind of supreme being, and who knows how many worlds he rules, and then he wears like different masks for the different planets or whatever. And then I found adjectives like I want him to be superior and sublime, like this highly developed being, like who's very sophisticated and highly just very advanced, you know. And now that I have these words, it makes it easier for me to find a form language, to find to make decisions about the shapes I create and the colors I will use and so on. I think it also helps if you come up with something like that before you even start. But for me, I just wanted to jump right into it. So this is still the block out phase of getting like the main shapes into position, just to get some idea. And I think I should have spent more time in this stage before I go into the refinement. Because when I'm happy with all these primary shapes, I should have cleaned up everything much more to save time later on. Because I actually spent quite some time in Cinema 4D to polymodel some of the parts because it just didn't look good. And I struggled a little here with the curves, but I think they have updated the curves like a year ago or so in ZBrush, so they are really, really powerful and more easy to handle. So I just have to learn how to tweak them better. Here I'm jumping to Cinema 4D again just for some cylinders, and I do that quite a lot, but I will try to improve in ZBrush to create most of those shapes there, because it doesn't make sense just to jump to Cinema 4D for some cylinders. I mean, I like placing objects there and building mockups in Cinema 4D because I just feel so comfortable doing it, but I think it's also nice to learn the tools that ZBrush has to offer and just stay in one program, so you don't have to switch as often. But like I said, it was mostly to get comfortable with the most like basic brushes, and I know there's a lot to improve on and I just have to pick like one at a time. So now what I'm doing is starting to work on each of the subtools I've created and go into like secondary and tertiary shapes. That's also something I want to work on, just to be more aware of what my primary and secondary shapes are, because I feel like I jump from secondary or between secondary and tertiary a lot, and I don't focus enough on my primary shapes. So I think the art or the design, whatever I'm going for, can be improved a lot. So now I know that I won't see much of this on the side of the head, but I kept like working on it just to have like a better silhouette and something going on there. It doesn't have to be like very precise. And this piece I'm building here, I really ended up liking it, but I should have spent more time to clean it up because I had to remodel it in Cinema 4D, and I think I lost a lot of time because of that. But it's all practice. Same for drawing, right? I mean, the best way to improve drawing is to actually draw. You can watch tutorials all day and not improve at all. And it's same for 3D. You just have to put in the time. There's no shortcut. You will get more comfortable with tools. So of course you get faster over time, but this comes naturally. I would not like focus on getting fast, because I think you miss out on a lot of things, and it's all about learning. It's all about getting comfortable and enjoying this process. So when you want to achieve something too fast, you just put yourself in a situation where you have to produce a certain result, and I think that's dangerous for your progress. So for example, I think it's about 2 years ago when I started sharing stuff on Instagram, I had to learn to set my perfectionism aside. And I still have to remind myself of that fact, like every day, that this is all for practice. This is mostly for me. This is about having fun and learning and getting better and enjoying the process. And I think over time, I tend to polish my work more and more and more. And it's also interesting to see, because when you like go back a couple of months, then you will see that there's artwork from me that was really, really rough. And I like that a lot because it takes away the pressure of producing a certain result. Of course, I can spend more time on an artwork because I like it or because I want to. But just in general, I think it's really, really nice to give yourself this kind of freedom and to not be too hard on yourself. And especially when you're starting out, like I would recommend, like, do not share it. Do it for yourself. Do it like for your own progress. Do not do it so that people can tell you what a great job you've done. I think this is dangerous and really slows you down, because you focus on the wrong things. You focus on I don't know, likes, shares, and comments and whatnot, or on your friends or whatever it is, but you're not focusing on improving your skills. So when you're starting out, I would not recommend that you share it. Do a lot of stuff for yourself, like a sketchbook. A sketchbook, you have your sketchbook and you don't show it to anyone because it's just for yourself. It's not like, in YouTube where people share their sketchbooks and it all looks so polished because, they draw for maybe 20, 30 years. Of course, they're good. Of course, all their work looks nice. And if they show off their sketchbook, it looks really cool. But what you have to remember is that they've probably filled like hundreds of sketchbooks, maybe thousands of sketchbooks. And you can't expect something like that from your first one. So I cannot stress this enough. Like make it easy for you, and then embrace the process and that it takes time. You can also do that with 3D. And I really like to just print out what you've done, because then you can like keep track of what you've already accomplished. And I think it's really, really nice to have something you can look back at and be proud of how far you've gone, because most of the time maybe people improve over weeks and months and they still feel like, you know, they're just at the beginning and they haven't improved a lot. But when you look at your stuff from a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago, then you're going to be proud of yourself and then maybe even be more motivated. So now I'm jumping to Cinema 4D here for the assets, and I'm just creating a simple material with the dirt to get some emphasis on the creases and to see if the model I imported here is working well. And I liked what I saw and decided to finally add the hair and the beard. That was always in my mind the whole time. And I even deleted it in ZBrush because it seems like I was very sure that this would work. So now I'm working on the beard using a cloner object. And I'm trying to build a setup so that I only have to tweak like one point of the spline in order to move it. So now you can see that it has like a lot of subdivisions. So I just changed that and now I have just one point and can move them around freely. Because I even split up the symmetry here to make it look different. But I don't know if I checked it with the camera angle, because I think I don't know if it was worth the effort, because the whole bust is symmetrical and I don't know if it was worth it. So now I'm just adjusting the subdivisions. I come back later here to add details. But now I'm just trying to figure out like what will the camera angle be, and where's my main light source. And I want to decide that very early, because all of the stuff that I will be adding has to work from this angle. And I know I won't be rendering multiple images or an animation or anything. So I just want to make sure that it works for this one still image I will be creating. And right now we're looking up at him, and I kind of liked that for some time, because he feels like more superior. But then I decided that it doesn't felt like you're interacting with this character. So that's why I got the camera a little closer and a little more on the eye level of your own. So you're not looking up that much anymore. So now I'm using a kit bash set. I think I found this one on Gumroad, but I don't know the name anymore. But you find a lot of different free kit bash sets online. I try to use them like mostly just for like tertiary details, sometimes secondary, but not too much. You really have to be careful, because all of these pieces, they speak their own kind of design language. And you really have to be careful. If you use them too much, your own design will either like compete with it, so it won't work like that nicely together anymore, or overall your whole design will look like someone else's. So I'm just adding a few cables here and some bolts and put them into a symmetry object. And I messed something up, so I had to readjust all of them and make sure that they're not like stuck somewhere. But I think it's best if you over time build your own kind of kit bash library. Just make sure that whatever you create, you save it and maybe group it together. That everything you do has some kind of, can be reused later, you know? So now you see on the right side that the reflection on his forehead is horrible. And that's because I didn't spend like much time polishing it in ZBrush. And I think I could have avoided this whole step here. I mean, I haven't used like polygon modeling for quite some time. So this was nice for me to just get back into it again. And I also saw that it wasn't as clean as I expected it to be. So I struggled here and there. I think I learned a lot. But yeah, maybe next time I'll try to polish it further in ZBrush, or create the whole piece in Cinema 4D from the start. Really depends on the shapes. But yeah, it's practice. Practice is good. So I mean, at some point I saw how fast Vitaly Bulgarov creates his shape in polygon modeling, and it was just a pleasure to see. He's so efficient. So I still believe that even though we now have all these sculpting tools and different options to deal with booleans and whatnot, I think it's still very, very nice if you can polymodel, because it just gives you like so much freedom. You create whatever shape you want to create, but you have to learn like a set of rules, and then you need some practice, and then you will be able like to create any shape you like. So yeah, practice makes perfect. And you see me jumping around here quite a lot, tweaking things, trying it again and again. Because I think I should have started from like with less polygons and then work my way up. I think I was too I was still like very confident that I would like just build this thing very easy, but then I kind of realized that it's been quite a while since I polymodeled something, and then I had to face the truth that I got a little rusty. But now I already could see like on the left side that the reflections looked much better, and then with textures and maybe even some Photoshop work afterwards, nobody would be able to see it anymore. What I was also able to see on the left side is that I kind of needed to split his hair up. I wanted it to have a different texture, and I wanted it to be darker, but then I figured it would be too dark and a little too boring, so I wanted to create some more details on his hair. So that's why I'm splitting up this object here. And I forgot to remove the caps, and that's why what I was trying to do wasn't working. So I had to work around that and clean it up. But you know, finally I can check, and I like what I saw, and I know I just get rid of these rectangular shapes, because I think nowhere on this design you have like square or rectangular shapes at all. So it was like, it looked a little weird. And now I'm using a backup of this object to create these ring shapes. And I do that quite often, before I do like big changes on an object, I just save a copy. Now I'm actually going back to this headpiece again because the reflections still don't look good in that corner. But now I think I finally got it and was happy with what I got. Now I add his eyes. So this is a very important step because it will add a lot of character. So I wanted it to glow, and for some reason, I think the material wasn't thick enough for the emission to work. So I had to scale it up a little. And now I could see that what works. I think I jumped back and forth between like a bluish color and a reddish or orange color a lot. And then I just wanted to make sure that that looks good, that it's not too big, that it's not too bright. So that's why I tweaked it a lot. And to get even more control, I changed the kind of emission type here, so I can pick the color I want. And now it's time for the details on the beard. So I kind of check the positioning again, and then like make my selection, because I think the the most important part was to create all the selections I needed. And at that point, I knew that getting rid of the symmetry object was not a good idea because now I have double the amount of objects I need to tweak for the shapes I want to create now. And I had a very good idea of what I was going after. So you don't see me like trying different things on a beard here. I pretty much knew what I was going for. And I think that also comes with experience, so that you kind of know in advance what kinds of tools you have to use for a certain outcome. So this is what I did here. I did a lot of preparation. I had like different selections saved for edge selections and polygon selections for the extrude and the bevel and the sweep object I used. So the creation of this object probably now took just a few seconds, but the preparation was like 80, 90% of it. And even though I spent so much time on the selection, I forgot a part. And that's why I have to go in here and fix it. And at that point, I asked myself if it would have been easier to go back and just apply all the steps again. So just fix the selection. But I think I told myself that it's all practice again and just moved on. Because there will always be like a lot of different ways to create shapes. And it doesn't matter if whatever you chose to do is the fastest way. I think the most important thing is that you just execute it. And I changed the background here and the eye color. And I think at that point I decided for what kind of colors I was going for. And now I saw that there was something missing on his head. I knew in ZBrush, I did it on purpose. I did not add like too much detail on the top of the head because I thought it would catch too much attention. But now it would be like really nice to break the silhouette and add some more areas of interest. Maybe something that would cast like a nice shadow. And then I decided to use a deformer, but I think it was the wrong deformer. So I had to tweak or to repair the shape again. But yeah, now you see that I have like a little better silhouette and some nice shadows. And I think that works just much better than before. I'm adding a few subdivisions here to make sure the eyes look good. And after I did so much polygon modeling on this piece anyway, I decided to build this kind of much easier kind of shape pretty fast. For the same reason. I could have cleaned it up in ZBrush, but I felt that just the reflections that I got here didn't look good. Or you could also argue that my perfectionism kicked in. Maybe some part of me wanted to keep working on this guy. Yeah, who knows, who knows? So this is the last kind of detail I decided to create because I wanted to separate this little piece in the middle of the head because I knew it would get like another texture. So what I've done here is I just rendered like 5 different images with different colors. So I have a black, a gray, a white, and a gold, and one image with a lighting that I liked or that I wanted to use because it had stronger shadows. And I really like this workflow because it's very non-destructive. Now I can just go in and paint the colors where I need them. So I just have these different layers you can see on the right side. And all I'm doing is painting with black and white into my mask. So you see me switching between black and white the whole time. It's just a shortcut X, and that allows me to simply decide where I want to have color. And it's also very flexible because, I could go in like here, and change the color of a layer. Or maybe use the color adjustment tools, or I could use this gold layer and make a silver layer from it. So it's just very, very flexible, and I could use all the tools that Photoshop has to offer to create even more colors. But I kind of knew the color palette I was going for, so I didn't need more. So this is a very, very relaxing part. This is where it comes all together. It's like celebrating that it has come to an end. And now you see me playing with a light layer to get the effect I want, to get some stronger shadows. And I decided that I actually needed like another color for the cushion of his shoulder. And in order to make it work, I had to fix the mask here. But I think after that, all I did was add the curves and a levels adjustment layer. And that just really helps to push your image a little further. I'm also doing a high pass here, high pass filter with an overlay to get some more sharper edges around his face. And then just some blur to also make the eye focus more on his face. So this was the creation process of Seka in about 30 minutes. I really hope you liked it. Definitely let me know what you think in the comments, and I hope to see you around.